Chapter 5. The next day was Sunday. Of course, the four of us went to Shaker meeting. Me and Mama and Papa and Aunt Kelly. We went in the wagon and Solomon pulled it all the way to running and all the way home. It was a near good sunny Sunday, perfect all around. And the best part was I sat in meeting where I could see Becky Tate and she couldn't see me. That afternoon, Pinky and I went for a walk up under that part our rent from Mr. Tanner's. We didn't go too near the spot where old Ephraim and I met up. I don't hanker to ever see that place right away quick. And if it's never, you won't hear a howl from me. One nice thing about April, there were little rivers about everywhere where the spruce cover was thick. You could still see a patch of snow here or there. And the ground was still hot to winter, but only in spots. Most of the land dry off to sun, and it was soft and brown, ready to be made with seed. Pinky rooted around in the leaves and found her very first butternut left over from fall. She sniffed it a while with her little pink nose, and then she tried to crack it with her teeth. She couldn't do it, but it sure wasn't from lack of trying, so I put the butternut on a flat rock and smashed it with another stone and fed the meat of the butternut to Pinky. We looked around for more and found a few. Pinky seems to take to them, because each time I'd stop to crack one, she'd almost always have her nose in the way of the rock. One of the tiny rivers was only about as wide as my hand, but the current was swift. It was a perfect spot to build what I like to build every spring. Pinky, I said, you ever see a potter wheel? Potter? Well, I'm going to make one, so you watch near close and careful. I found two tiny fork sticks, which I pushed into the mud poke up on both sides of the stream. Then from one fork to the other, I put a basswood axe with a dam of mud in the closety of both forks to graze its turning. All was needed then were 3 or 4 paddles that I stuck into the axe. By pushing the 2 fork sticks deeper into the mud until the water touches the paddle, bread is the paddle wheel finally turned. The strong current of the tiny creek made it turn round and round. Pinky watched it for a moment or two, but didn't find it near as calmly as butternuts. She sure was my pig. As I lay on the ground on brown carpet of soft needles, Pinky would wander off by herself, but never very far. No farther than you could kick a bottle with just one good kick the bottle on its side and rolling. One time she went a little farther from me, and a big black claw over her head in a hickory tree let out a bark that made her jump and squirrel like she'd been stuck. She come running to me like the fallen angel was after her. Angel. She never stopped screaming until she was in my arms with her shoulder all over me. I felt her feel the warmth of my chest next to her. She was my feet. 40 minutes after the crowd spooked her, she was waiting in the water not too far from where the propeller wheel was turning. She came close to stepping on a frog, and when it jumped, so did she. You couldn't tell which one was more scared of the other, the frog or Pinky. All the frog took was just one jump and sat there like he was waiting for her. He didn't wait long. Pinky got her cushion up in no time and went close enough to smell him. This time when he jumped and pulled back a bit, but didn't spook. Not Pinky. I guess she knew he wasn't anything more than a little old frog, and that he wasn't anything to run from. She kept right on chasing him, and he kept right on laughing. It was fair to see. He got so busy keeping away from Pinky that he made a big mess, though. He promptly got about that old black clock that was sitting up above, just watching that game of tag. It didn't take that wise old bird long to see himself a meal. He dropped out of that hickory tree like a big black stone, landed with his feet splashing in the water, and took a sharp, clear peck at the frog. Hit him dead center. By the time Pinky jumped away, I saw the last of Mr. Frog. He just disappeared with his white belly up right into the beak and grunt of that claw. He tasted good, you can bet. I'd ate the leg of big fat bullfrog on many summer, or I know, just like chicken. Only you got to skin them first. Unless you skin them, they are real slimy. And you can only eat the hind leg. The front arms you just have to throw to the chickens. Funny thing about that, I was cleaning a mess of frog on time with Papa. I said, Papa, aren't it curtain that we can only eat 2 legs of a frog instead of 4? And he said, Rob, here's what you do. You catch a real big bullfrog and make friends with him and teach him to jump backwards. That will make his front legs big as the hind. You know, I actually tried it. I went up the next day and caught me a bullfrog and spent the better part of moaning, trying to run that old frog to jump backward so he'd build up his front legs. But you think he'd do it? Not even once. Papa wasn't one to smile every year, but he sure did that. Before I knew it, there I was telling that frog story to Pinky. I don't know whether she found it as boastful as Papa, but she seemed to enjoy it some. Pink, I said, how about it? You won a frog's Persephone? She just looked at me with her funny little eyes, which could have meant yes. So we left the plot. We were turning and come down of the light, heading for the stump. It was the same hole that I let see the frog that I never learned to jump backward. Maybe they'd be more, and I could give Pinky to taste of frog legs. We got to the stump, okay, and started to turn over a few rocks looking for frogs, but there just didn't seem to be many around or any. Pinky watched me wading around looking among the rocks, and she glanced to that she'd try her luck, poking her little pink snout down between two stones at the water's edge. She found something on the very first try. It was somebody who could jump backward, all right, but it wasn't no frog. She scolded. Coos cling to her. Rose was one powerful-looking crow. Did in school, Miss Malcolm calls them crayfish. But if one ever gets hold of your toe, it sure feels a lot more like a cloudit. And that old clouded and Pinky Rose was nearly giving her what for. I pulled it off and threw it back in the pond, but she kept cackling. I like one. It gave her snout a good pinch. From high on the rise, Pinky and I could look down and see Mr. Tanner's palm. He sure looked prosperous. Next to our palm was long and wide painted, and there were white fences along the run. On the near side of the big white house was a small meadow. That was where we could see Apron and her two bull cows. Just a look at that big Holstein made my arm hurt. The stitches were still in it, and I guessed they'd be there until her closed and got her to the ice house. If Mama has one friend to name her showing, she sure hadn't told it unto me. I didn't bring it up and wasn't going to, just in case those stitches hurt half as much coming out as they did going in. I couldn't say for sure just how you took stretch out somebody's arms, but it would probably mean come cutting, and I wasn't about to step forward for another dose of that. It was good to look down from the high and lonely and see Bob and Beep tagging along after Efron, but Bob was the one named after me. My real name was Robert Peck. But lots of time I got called Bob. That what Jacob Harry called me. I was named after Robert's Logos, who was quite a man with the Indians in this part. He's dead now, but there was a time when there wasn't an Iroquois in Vermont or in New York State that didn't hear the name of Major Robert Logos and started to feeling. Oh, some said he was Shaker and just like Papa and just like me, but he didn't wear Shaker clothes. He wore Indian clothes most of the time. Robert Logos did. He wore buckskin shirts and trousers and no stockings. People said Major Robert Logos was a very famous man, so famous that if you roll close like two Ticonderoga, there's a big rock slide named after him. Indians were chasing him along the shoulder that's west of Lake George, and Robert Logos slid down the slide to escape. That's how he got away. That's why he's so famous, according to Miss Markham. Pinky, I said, do you know what? I was named after Major Robert Logos, and that he was a Shaker just like me and you. Be it if Pinky was at all brightened to knowing that she sure did it good. She just kept rooting around in the home and God finding a thing, so I just kept saying to her about Robert Logos. That's how he got away, Pinky, because from everything I've heard and read in history books, Robert Logos didn't have to run from the Indians at all. He could have turned and pulled them off one by one and killed every last one of them. He could have seen them all lie down that rock, Logos Rock. It's called. When my grandfather was still alive, I told him about Robert Logos and all. And I said how much Major Robert Logos hates Indians, and that's when Grandpa said that he didn't hate them all because a number of Indian women in this party had children that looked a bit like they was by Robert Logos. They all favors him some, and anyhow, he sure seems to be a regular guy, so I was dear proud to carry his name. Come on, Pinky, I said, it's getting close to true time. I got to feed you and Daisy and Solomon, and if I'm not home come true time, her won't have it. Papa guess my tears up over that right issue. Teachers are my mission, not his. I ran down off the lazy toward our farm as fast as I could, just to see if my feet could keep up with me. She could. I ran all the way across the rose meadow, clear to the creek, and even there I didn't stop. I just jumped it right. She aired through the air and landed yonder. I think he didn't jump from one bank to another, but she sure it fast as furry. Francie glided through and made all the silver jump up around her hoofs. Come quick, said Mama, who was standing at the barn door. Just inside was dressed in the hay, right next to the warm near lays down in the way was our barn cat Miss Star, and three of the prettiest kitten you'd see anywhere on was like her, and if it lived, it would be a female. Female to male calico style. Another one was a tiger buff, and it was each the biggest. The third one was almost all white with buff cloth markings on its back and they was to behold. Miss Sarah was near happy about it too. She lay there, pulling and pulling and pulling, like her motor was running and wouldn't stop. And those three kittens with their wet milky noses all buried into her belly, all sucking away to be mercy. Look, Pinky, I said, lifting her up so she could see Miss Sarah and her litter. No matter how many times a cat has her kids, Mama said, it's always a wondrous thing to see. Chapter 6. June come. I sure was happy, as today was the last day of school. It was hot that afternoon, but I came racing home with my final report card all folded up in my pocket. The weather was dry and dust, and I was glad to be walking across the patrol on the soft green meadowland instead of kicking rocks the long way round, which was by the dirt road way off to my right side. A wagon was coming down the long hill headed for town. I didn't know the him or the driver. As the wagon moved along the dirt road, it brought up a cloud of dust that seemed to hang in the air behind it. Looked like the wagon was chased by a long, dusty gray snake. The driver had his coat took off right in his shirts, with his sleeves rolled up. It looks like Isador who sat the seat, but I couldn't tell for sure. I watched the wagon until it went out of sight around the road bend. As soon as the snake had gone, too, it was like the wagon hadn't passed by at all. From a quarter mile away, I couldn't see the Comcast the Solomon moved with the capstan, and it's new from one end to the other, like stripes to fill in what used to be the open space between slats. Closer, I could see Pinky moving about, chasing one of the chickens. Pinky, I yelled, but she was too far away to hear. So I ran again, but not too far, as it sure was a hot day for June. Now that I was near, I called to Pinky again. This time she heard and come to meet me, boy. She was growing. I had her just 10 weeks, and already she was about my size. I lay on my back on the grass so she could come to me and I could see her face. It always looked at me like she was smiling. In fact, I know she was. Lots of things smile like flower to the sun, and one thing sure, I knew that just like I could smile to see Pinky, she sure couldn't smile to see me. I got up, running toward the house. Pinky followed, but not as fast as when she was tiny. Her weight gain was good, but slowed down some just as we got to the fence. I saw Mama on the front stoop waving for me to come up to the house. I'd hoped she hadn't took notice of me rolling on the meadow grass in my school clothes. Love, she said as I came in the house. Look who's here. There she was, sitting in our good chair and wearing one of her big dresses with all the colorful flowers on it and smiling so good with perfumes that I almost made me sick. There she was, Aunt Mary. She lived in town in London. Wow. Once a month or so she'd come to Faker and Mama. She wasn't my real aunt like Aunt Carrie, but I guess she was distant cousin twice moved, with to go along with my reckoning means that she used to live in two other places before she moved to And anyhow, she was my dear aunt, just a friend of Mama and Aunt Kelly, so that they got out the good cups to drink tea around. But I called her Aunt Marty, or sometimes Auntie Matt. Her little name was Martha Clover. Hello, Aunt Marty. Well, look at the size of you. You're growing like a weed. And he always said that, and yet it always made me feel good. Thank you, I said. I should have excused myself right then and there and changed my clothes for chores. But instead, I made my big mistake of the day, and it could have been my big mistake of the whole damn summer. Like a fool, I pulled out my report card. I showed it to Mama and to Aunt Carrie. They couldn't read harder at all, but they knew what A looked like. I'd got A in geography, spelling, reading, and history. The only other mark I got was D in English, which I didn't bother to point out. So when Mama and Aunt Carrie saw all them A's, they said I was a good boy. The trouble kicked up when I showed my report card to Aunt Mary. She could read, but as it turned out, she couldn't read the letter A no matter how many she saw. All she could write was D. Well, I got a D in English. You got D in English? The way Aunt Mary took on, it must have been the first D anybody ever got, because it sure gave her the paper. I thought she was going to die from the shock of it, like the scene she seen a ghost. There it was, a big black D, as big as black as Americans could make it. Like there on my old report card, and it was more than poor Aunt Mary could bear. She let out a gasp, and her hand went to her throat, like she was present. D in English, she said again, to make sure that there wasn't a soul who missed it. Well, I thought to myself, I've done a disgrace on my family's house. A fear A or D in English was too dark a deed that no one could live it down. because it's not the end of the world, said Aunt Mary. There is Leonard. There was a world that stuck up fever. Mama Beth gave me a spoonful of nemat. For one thing of another, almost every winter and spring, and made you go to the back house a lot, morning, noon, and night, sometimes twice each, and it was no picnic to have your butter bomb like hellfire. All he needs, said Aunt Mary to Mama and Aunt Carrie, is a tutor. As this I heaved a breath of well-being. I sure knew what a tutor was. Jacob Harry has one. His new name was Cornet. And he played it in the school band, but what Jacob called it was his tutor. So I was relieved now, knowing that I wasn't going to get Machi to the kitchen, took by the ear and focused to gag down a tablespoon of lemon. I correct was bad the way Jacob played it, but it sure with a nemati that you had a swirl now and none after. That is, said Aunt Mary. I will tutorial myself. That was when I busted out laughing fit to kill. Aunt Mary big and round in a flower dresses, and all her face was strange to look at as she was, but to see her blowing on a cornet with her cheeks all puffed out the way Jacob's got, but was too much to stand a sign like that could lead the high school band in a parade and her silver cornet. Stepping down the main street of running every 4th of July, it was more than lips could take. That's when I should have known better. Seeing me laughing was more than Aunt Mary could hear bear. Anyone who got a D in English had no right to joy. It was her next word and stopped laughing for time to come. D in English is no laughing. Our next thing is B and an F for horror. And you know what that means. Exploration. He'll be put back a grade, so there's no time to lose. I'll start to tutor him today, and right now, come Robert. Up jumping Aunt Mary, grabbing me with one of her hands and her big old fluffy pocket with the other. I could tell she meant business as she dropped me into the her breast were reading as if I said, well, it was all right with me. If Aunt Mary wanted to play the cornet, I was particular to eat grammar, she said, forcing me with some force into a hot water and factor. That's where you point down before I married your Uncle Hum. I was an English teacher. And that's where we're going to start living in this house and always secret ways. It's a wonder you can talk at all. It gets better than a D in English if you were a purely fastest. Then that was it. That there was the time my heart almost almost thought I'd heard about the this from Jacob Harris' mother. According to her, this was strange lot. They put you in war to see how holy you were, then they ducked you under the water 3 times. Didn't matter if you could swim or not. No. If you didn't come up, you got that, and your mortal soul weren't hell. But if you did come up, it was even worse. You had to be up. And here I was, along with one. Bless the dear old goodness, there won't pond in our parlor. It sure would be a painful caption to have a face the size of Aunt Mary hold the door. Even to think of it made me gasp for breath, and I made a truly noise. You alright? Asked Aunt Mary, digging around inside her big pocket. She came up with a tiny white-laced hanky, not much bigger than a stamp. Here, she said, blow your nose. You can learn English with unacting. I blow. Now then, said Aunt Mary, as she snatched back her hanky, giving it a sick look. We're going to have a little test on grammar. You tell me, Robert, which sentence is correct already? Yes, ma'am. It was who he called, it was me who he called, it was I whom he called, and it was me whom he called. I just sat there, dumb as first. I guess it. I didn't have brains enough to send out a boot. If she'd asked me if I was Robert Peck, I don't guess I could have answered a good told yes or no. Well, I don't know, Auntie Matt. They all sound fair enough to me, just as I suspected from the first. The first what? It is just an expression, laugh. But it's just as I feared. You don't know grammar because you don't know how to diagram. We haven't had that yet, I said. Cause you haven't. Trouble with teacher today is they don't diagram. All they think of is the bunny hug. We haven't had that either. Aunt Mary went pissing into her big cat book once again. She pulled out an of things that she didn't want, and finally some paper and pencil. So she said, writing as fast as she talked, I am going to write out a sentence and you can diagram it here. Yes, there now. Jack hit the ball hard with Joe's yellow bat. Let's see you diagram that. I can, Aunt Matt. I know you can't, but any schoolboy who gets D had better run burst off. What's the subject? English. What? English is the subject I got a D in. Aunt Mary whisked her face with hanky. I blowed my nose into. She gave a big sigh, like Solomon when he's pulling the plow and comes to the end of plow. And I knew that grammar sure was preparation. Rough, she said, real soft. I used to teach English, and there was one thing I never did know what that was, right? The correct. Not exactly. I never got angry. A good teacher does not lose her temper, no matter how stupid her pupils are. That's good, I said, because in our school there sure are some dull ones. As Aunt Mary panned herself with a hanky, I wonder what she was thinking about. I was joyful to hear that Aunt Mary didn't get mad, angry. Teacher is bad, uh, friendly. But I didn't know how good I could bend off an angry Baptist. Picking up the pencil, Aunt Mary started to draw some lines and circles and a few other giggles that I never seen before and never since on the sentence about Jax. She put a zigzag here and a crazy elbow joint there. There was a ball and all of the paper. It was the faintest thing I ever saw. The part about Jack was still inside, but now it had arms unlocked out in six directions. It looked to me like a hill of half wire, and the worse it got, the prouder Aunt Mary was of it. Behold, she said at last, trying to pry loose the pencil from her one finger. That is a diagram. I wasn't about to make sport of it, and Carrie always said that all the first the dark. I did know the truth of it, but years back in the town of Running, somebody had come across an old woman who was a witch. She just looked at a bomb and is bound to cinders. She could dry up the cheek with the crack of her crackers and show your cow milk before it bubbles in a pail. One look from that old witch. They said, would we go? And fear or pain must have been a Baptist G. Z. Aunt Mary. I said I ought to get A in English now for certain. Here, she said, handing me the paper that she sweated over like it was. Can take it up to your room and pin it on the wall. She pushed the paper to my hand, and I felt the unholy touch of it all the way upstairs and down. Did you thank Aunt Mary? My mama asked me. Can't forget manners. Thank you, Aunt Mary. Now I got to do chores. If it don't get done, they will be never mind, of course. Twins, I and Papa. I was careful not to slam the door just outside. I think he was waiting for me, and we raced each other to the farmyard fence. And just as I took leave of the house, I heard all of Aunt Mary's brass go and I heard Mama say, "How was the first lesson?" "Next time," said Aunt Mary, "I'll teach the pig." Chapter 7. Up on the right north from our house, it was open field. You could walk through most of the mile before reaching the wood. The grass was high now, and seeing as I'd walked all day, old hay wagon with Papa, it sure felt good just to know that the evening chores were done, and I could lie on my back in the soft grass and do nothing except wait for evening. Pinky was with me, and she was lying down too, even though she hadn't put in the leg of walk all day, but there she was, a mound of white pig in a whole field of purple clover and wheat. Here and there was a stand of wild paintbrush, most of it yellow and some red. It didn't seem to want to mix with the crop, and it just kept to eat one kind. I heard her side was purple crop, and the early sundown it looked more purple than I'd ever see it. I think it was rolling on it, over and back, over and back. I knew it hurt from the her because I was lying in it itself, and the clover felt and good to me. The clover was getting ripe now, and you could take a big red purple bowl of it in your hand and pour out flower shoot. They were good to shock and tasty, just as sweet as the bee honey that was made from them. Drawing one between my front teeth, I squeezed a sugary turn into my mouth and spit out the fluid. It sure tastes good. I tried to get Pinky to taste some, but I guess that pig just don't cut into cropland. Just overhead, I could see a hawk drawing a circle in the sky. He was loud for a hawk, and he must have just left his nest under ice and was making his first circle of evening flight. He went higher, with little moving of his wings as he fast over, as I could see the red of his tail like a touch against the soft colors of his underbody. He went up his curls were wider as he drifted south over the open meadowland of our palms, so high that he was only a dark spit. Wings the cloud above him whirls now like when Mama poured fishy juice on the last cloud of white poches at the westernmost tongue of his circle. I almost lost him in the sundown, but now he was returning. I wanted him to come back, so as I could watch him circle as the tiny speck of him fasted over my head, he stopped for an instant. He didn't fly at all and just appeared to be fast against the cloud, not moving. Then he got bigger and bigger. I couldn't see any wings as he was pouring past as stern. I sat up in the cover to watch his drive, and for a minute I thought he was coming down for me. I knew a hawk wouldn't bother me none, so I sure knew it was me that hawk was hunting, and down it came, down, 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 not moving his wings at all. Like they was packed to his side, and he couldn't move like his fall. He was going to hit the ground for sure, and I jumped on my feet to see it fall. The hit all a few rows from where I was standing in the cover, just the yonder side of the juniper bush where the clover was nearby at all, and where it once had been off meadowland for pasture. He hit something as big as it was deer, and whatever it was pressing about the ground. Seeing his talons were buried in its paw, the hawk was being whispered through that juniper's profile, but all he had to do was hang on and drive his talons into her lungs. Then I heard the cry, who a fit it was, and it even made Pinky get to her feet. I'd only heard it once before. A rabbit. That's right. And it don't get very easy. Like a newborn baby, that's the sort of noise it was made. Maybe even a call for help for somebody to come in, and it's haunting. It's the only cry that the rabbit makes its whole life long, just that one death cry, and it's all over. The cottontail rabbit has stopped kicking, and the hawk was resting after struggle, probably trying to get his face back, so I didn't move Pinky either. We both stood stock still up to our knees in that club, like it was his that old hawk's us. You can wake on that. He saw us for certain sure, but it didn't speak to him. I started to move forward, near slow through the stand of the crabber toward the hawk, trying to keep the Juniper twins. The two of us, and huffing that big white pig didn't come pressing along to see what was up. Took about 3 steps, and that was all. Mr. Hawk snapped those big wings out and whispered them past. So off it went. I could tell that rabbit was dead. The way it hung all loose in the turnip, that all detail. The hawk went up and away from us, flying now and cruised ground until his speed was as he could climb. To him, that rabbit must have been a £1.5, but it sure was going to be a hot meal. The grass whispered on my lap as I ran after him fast as I could, so I could see well on that his last was that I knew he circled back to. Pinky didn't want to miss a trick, so he was right at my heels, but I lost sign of the hawk. He just plain melted over the hilltop and out of sight. I sure would have wanted to see his nest, and to see him tear up that pressed rabbit and feed his little ones. I bet soon as he landed as his nest with his kill all his blood, and there, like often, wanting to get some hunk of one rabbit down their grunt. Any rabbit we ever shot, Papa always loved its very hair up the one way to see if it was healthy. If he felt bump on the belly, then he'd bury it because of it being down with rabbits. If it was sound, it was pie. It made me hungry just to study on it. I'd tasted rabbit plenty of times myself, and it was better than goose. Mama was a good cook when it came to tanning a rabbit in her oven. There wasn't one mild thing that either Papa or me could live for that Mama couldn't put in the pot. So if those young Hawker rastings went after the rabbit meat, it was only because they got to eat ahead of me. I didn't know if Pink would like rabbit or no, but all pig or meat eater sure ought to be with 44 teeth. Papa said that was more teeth than I got, so maybe old Pinky would eat rabbit. All I know is so hawk will eat her blood of seasonal right. That what Papa said. I should have Pinky good, just to make sure she got to grow nice. I give her as much time with barley light and as I could walk out of Papa or Mr. Chandler. She always got some of this good fresh milk. Anytime I went fishing, she got fish and all the soybeans meal and alpaca I could most. Mama said, "Loved you feed that pig. Felt you filled yourself." I said, "Yes, it was true. She was my pig, mine, and I was going to feed dogs if she'd eat improper." That was just food. She drank about the and like Solomon and David, she liked her water cold and fresh. I was at Jacob Henry once and he was working sheep stock. They had a horse and a cow and only one bucket, so Jacob always had to water the horse first, because a cow will drink after a horse, but no horse will drink after a cow, and a cow drinks 3 pails to 1 for a horse, but the horse got to drink first. I kept a record of how much I fed Pinky and wrote it all down up in my bedroom. The way I had it figures for every 354 pounds of feed I give, she always grain I unread. As I was sitting there in a clover, chewing on a juniper berry, Pinky came over and rubbed against me, and it was some love. Because she sure was growing, I'd give a pie for breakfast if I could have grown like she glowed. "Pinky," I said, "you got too good care of. You got shelter and shade, and your crib is well drained. There's always dry straw for you to sleep on, and the sun poured by the brook promotes low when I ever went down the yard. But you should have dust and creep in your nose," she snarled. I knew she wasn't saying thank you or anything, but it sure was fun to pretend it so. "You're welcome, Pink, and I'm going to keep right on taking care of your fur, because do you know what you aim to be? You aren't going to be Puck. No, Missy, you're going to be a broad star and have a very long life. You got to sneeze good and hit up like a star pig and we're going to write to you, Mr. Thunderball. Just wait until you see son. He's about the best ball in running, according to Papa. You and Simpson are going to get mounted mad." And the first 3 wrote to be our last 8, and after that 10. Oh, this here talk of motherhood didn't seem to take to Pinky. She moved away from me and snapped at a V. "V," I said, "you must be the last one out tonight. Better get home to your tree. It's getting dark." The whole sky was pink and pink. Just looking up at it made you feel clean, even if you walked all day. We walked down the hill together. Pinky looked close to the ground the way she always did, and me watching the sun down. The old sun just seemed to back off and leave as we got home, and I panted Pinky up for the night and gave her an extra big goodnight hug, and I was walking back toward the house my throat right through my throat's shirts until I held her close to make her breath no more of pulling. Papa had been mending her harness, replaced poor Mr. Sandler, and I waited while he slowly put all his tools away. Mr. East preferred bed on the wall of the tech room. Then we went outside and sat on the bench on the east side of the farm. Me still holding the kitchen on my lap, and we watched the sun go down. The pink become purple, and the purple turned to what Mama called a sweet gray. Papa, I said, of all the things in the world to see, I reckon the heavens at sundown has got to be my favorite sight. How about you? The sky's a good place to look, he said, and I got our rations. It's a good place to go.